She's like, oh, why don't you go to like a bunch of seminary and like teach there because they really want to learn. And I'm like, these girls want to learn? Like, don't limit them. I don't care what you answer, but I care that you think and that you form an opinion. And I think in the beginning, my principal was like, thought it was cute and she was intrigued by it. But then at the end, like, she was not about it. I think because it was too out there, back to just like pushing limits and like thinking for yourself and like critical thinking, way too out of the box. I was just like, this is insane. Like, I am not going anywhere. I need to be here. And that calling just got stronger. It just gave me clarity to like who I am, what my mission is. A couple months later, I started the podcast.
Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back.
As you can see, today we have a guest.
Chani Katzman. Yes.
Welcome.
Who has our own podcast, Dare to Differentiate.
I feel like in our community, not a lot of people have podcasts. So it's really cool when you meet someone else who has it. I met only like a few.
Yeah.
And like every time people hear that I have a podcast, they're like, what? That's crazy. And I'm like, it's so unoriginal in the world, but in this community, it's different.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Even my family, when I was starting the podcast, they were like, why? Like, are you sure you want to talk in front of people? Like, when I was like, I'm promoting,
sure you want to talk.
Like, just shut your mouth. Don't talk.
Just keep quiet.
Someone's going to listen. Maybe not you, but someone's
How did you decide to start? Are you a big fan of podcasts that you were like, I should do my own? Or was it an idea of brewing for a long time?
It was definitely an idea of brewing for a long time. I don't know. It was like, I feel like it was just the climax of like so much of my life's work. I'm an educator. I've been teaching for like a bunch of years, and I was moving away from the classroom. And so I wanted to find a way that felt like a way that I can put content out that felt authentic to me. And I also felt like podcasts is such a great way to have great conversations.
Yeah.
And like really get to the nuance and there's so many things that I want to talk about that might be difficult to talk about, but I feel like podcasting is a really great platform. I mean, I don't have to sell it to you.
Right.
A great medium.
I love
like
podcasting.
What I honestly right now don't listen to a lot. It's also part of like being insecure about like mine not being good enough or whatever, like that kind of thing.
I hear that.
Yeah, now that whenever I listen to podcasts, I'm always comparing it to like ours. Like they do this, that, but you just kind of have to just like do your own style.
Yeah, and just own it.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are so many different types of podcasts out there, and so many different types of popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
So some are like literally 4 hours long. Some they do 20 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone just has different
formats, types.
Some don't edit it. Like it's just different styles. Some interview, some just like
some of it promote,
like,
or some don't. Some like prepare, like whatever. Yeah.
But what gets to me is that everyone will have an opinion.
Yeah.
Like everyone also has like great advice to give you about your opinion.
Yeah.
It's like,
and some not.
I mean, your podcast.
Advice.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Right. It's always great advice coming from them.
Side,
They do have great advice, and it's like, listen,
do you want to
show what you got?
Podcast? Yeah, exactly.
Show what you got. You know, like I actually was on TikTok and I was noticing there was all these.
I love TikTok.
We can talk about that all day. That's what we talk about on the podcast today. But like you notice that the people who have negative things to say do not have a single video. If you have negative things to say on a video, like if that you're commenting like in the comments and like have all these you're not posting.
You're not putting yourself out there.
Of course not.
You're not.
No. You're not in the arena.
And also, whenever like I look at people who've like made it so big by posting videos, I'm like, whoa, like, okay, they probably have it easy because they have such a big audience, but they started somewhere. They started when like no one was listening to them, and they like, it's just such a vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
It really is. Vulnerable is the word for it, by the way.
Yeah, it is very.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Because the first thing people ask me is like, oh, how much like, and
how many do you listen?
How many listeners do you have? Like how many like, and I'm just like, we're starting out, whatever. Like, what's your goal about this? Like, why are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. It's just fun. It's just like,
it's also something
to do, but like,
and it's something that you would like that was calling you. Obviously, you don't do it like you have to really want to do it.
Right. Exactly.
And then it like I feel like for me like I really wanted to do it, and like everything fell into place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like. Within a couple months, like I decided actually 2 years ago on sukkahs.
Wow.
Like in the sukkah, I was like having this like little like meditation, I guess, like before I went to shul. And someone it was probably Shemini Atzeres, and I was like, it's just gonna be chaos. And like, let me just have like a minute with the sukkah. I know it sounds like super. And then
spiritual. And
then I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm starting a podcast. Like the end. Like that's what's happening. I actually had learned something about the power of word and like how Hashem created the world with speech and words. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to create with words.
Right.
And that's 2 years ago. And like, it's really evolved. Like you can see, like if you look at my podcast, like you see how it's evolved, and I could like walk you through it, but also you could just check it out and then you can see for yourself how it's evolved. I think especially in the beginning, like speaking about feedback, I sent someone my podcast and she's like, it feels like I was teaching more and like having a little bit of a conversation also. And her main feedback was like, I feel like you're hiding behind the content.
Right.
And that's true. Like that's what was happening. And
that's
like,
actually
in a lot of ways, like
advice,
I am,
I guess. Yeah.
But through this process, through this journey, I think I'd have found ways to like be more myself, which has been such an incredible gift.
And that's something that like podcasting also teaches you and taught me. Like we're still starting out. I think we're very much in the beginning.
I feel
stages,
like same. I feel like I'm
Right.
so in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like if you look at my numbers, like it's beginning.
Yeah.
Even though it's like
even though
amazing
for us, it's like wow.
Yeah.
No, like for me, if we get like 100 views on a YouTube video, I'll be like, whoa, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But, like, that's nothing.
Yeah, but it's amazing. But like imagine like 100 people just like sitting here and listening.
Right. That's what we like to say.
Always think
don't
about.
like discount that person that's actually listening to you. That's incredible. That one person's actually interested in what I have to say here.
Right. Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
But what was I saying?
We just live in a culture that doesn't value that. Values extreme numbers. So
yeah. Somebody was giving me recently, because I started working for this organization. So one of the things, like one of my like pitches, like when I was in my interview, was like, oh, I can start a podcast for you guys. And I mentioned it to somebody who's like, I guess I'm pretty close with her. And I was like, oh, I started a podcast. And she's like, it's so oversaturated. I'm like, I don't need your negative energy, A.
Right.
B, like, that's the point. Like it's supposed to be like everyone's voice needs to be heard. And that's like a big, like that's another really big reason why I wanted to start it. Cause like we need our voices to be heard, especially as women, especially like in our community, like we have so much to share and so much to give to the world. And like, we need to stop hiding.
Yeah.
Like we need to like stop hiding behind like all these like fake, like, oh, it's Kalisha, oh, it's Sneha. So you don't like, oh, it's bad for this. So like, it's not. It's bad for the world that they're not hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, and that's one of our
100%.
Our like kind of
we're in agreement about that.
Yeah, totally. Like you're not gonna find any
our like kind of hook, I guess, when we were talking about like what's gonna pull people to us, like whatever we're like kind of taking the route of like just be the religious perspective on just life. Like everyone we all live in the same world, but we all have like different experiences of life.
Yeah.
And we like specifically growing up religious have a unique experience of life. It's very different from a secular, person living in Alabama or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very different. So
I will say though,
everyone needs to be represented in
I have worried a lot about the oversaturation, especially in the podcast world.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I feel like a lot of like the problem I have with media is just I feel so overwhelmed. It's so overwhelming how much is out there. Yeah. And then you're constantly comparing and you're seeing these things on your phone that you would have never seen if you were like, if you lived back in, I don't know, 1950s, just constantly comparing to these people that you don't even know.
Right.
And so I really felt, or I still do feel somewhat weird about adding to that overwhelmingness of media because it's like just another thing for people to like give their attention towards.
Yeah.
I mean, but it depends, like, what's your intention in doing it? Are you just trying to get attention? Then yes, that's like done.
Get over yourself.
Right. Like then it.
But are we not? I don't mean to be cynical, but I mean, we want their attention.
Yeah, of course. Of course we want people to listen to us because obviously we do think we have something special to give. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone should believe that they're special and they have something special to give. But I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but I hear what you have to say.
If you're just doing it for attention, for like clout, so to speak, I mean, like
it comes across though.
Then it's not authentic, and you're not actually But if you actually think like, okay, this is my special thing that I have to give, so let me try to do it. Or even, we're going out there and we're trying to find interesting people to talk to who not necessarily would have talked. Like we had the guy on who was like a Baal Tshuva, and he talked about how through meditation he found Judaism, and we poked him a little bit about like what his story was. Maybe he wouldn't have never talked about that if it wasn't for us finding him. whatever. That's just one example, but like just that type of thing, like whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think it's, yes, obviously you want people to listen to you, but it's not, there's a difference between just like asking for attention. Like, okay, like, you know.
Yeah, but even if it's oversaturated with what? Like you literally just said, like how many people do you feel represented?
Oh, that's a really good point.
In the podcast world. And in many ways I don't. And I don't feel like my story is represented. And I don't feel like I feel like I relate to a lot of the content, and I enjoy and I appreciate a lot of the content, but I don't feel like I didn't even think about that way. I mean, I'm sure I have, but this idea that like, yes, it's oversaturated, but there's so much space on the internet for everyone to be seen and appreciated and connected with people who they connect with, right? Like you're not in your, like, that's what I find with like, especially with TikTok, where you really find people that you never would have found, and like you learn such cool things, and like it's just a great experience.
It really is.
But it's also on you. Like you have to, it's what you make it.
You're saying the algorom that you have 100% for your page. Right. Oh yeah.
Like, you know, my friend, she's like, if you like TikTok, that's on you. Like, you're not a good person.
I love my For You page. Yeah. Like, I could spend hours.
She's like, that's on you 100%. And like, it's true. Like,
yeah.
And you see it more and more, and like, it comes through. And that's one of the things that, speaking of oversaturation, like when I first started, like I was very, very, very like on top of like the first like 10 months. I put out every single week. And then I took a break, and then when I started up again, I really want to have like real conversations, and I really struggled with like how I would do it, and it was a whole like personal like journey process of like getting to that place. And I took a break for like 6 months.
Was this after that comment someone gave you about hiding behind your content?
So she made that comment like in the very beginning, and I was like, and then I took a break like maybe 8 months later or something. I also like had undergone like a lot of like personal changes. I'd moved and like all this stuff. So then I just like took that time to just
reflect.
Didn't push. And every week I was like, hey, I'm going to put it out next week. I'll do it next week. And I just didn't. And like every week it was like, again, like giving myself the grace and the compassion to be like, this is not the week.
Right.
Like it's not going to go out this week. And like that itself was like such a process. I even remember like I was speaking to my therapist about it, and she's like, can you open your heart to like the gift of like not putting it out this week? And it was months of like every single week, like, and I wasn't ready. And then obviously like just going through that, and then it was like, I'll do every other week. And then I realized like maybe once a month. And then I also realized that it's a lot for me to put out this content, but it's also a lot to consume.
Right.
So how can I like give the people what they want? I don't have to give them an episode every single week.
Right.
So that was like my personal, but I had already, like now I'm at like 46 or something, and I would never have gotten to that number had I not been consistent like in the beginning, but then like that shifts.
Yeah.
Like
so now how often do you do it?
Like once a month ish, cool. 5 weeks, 6 weeks, like.
Right. Just whenever you feel.
Yeah, like when I meet someone that I want to talk to about, like Chai came over to my house, we had a book swap, and then I was like, oh my gosh, come. So she came, that was it. Like we did it, and then like obviously I have my eyes and ears open, and I'm always talking about it. And then I have people that are on my list that I haven't had on yet. Yeah. So it's kind of like a lot of my own personal stuff that I'm trying to like access.
Yeah.
And just like connect with whatever's coming up, whatever's going on. Like that's focus on them and create from that energy,
from that like inspiration of
just,
like,
versus like really hustling, because I can hustle like a dog, but I don't want to. And it's going to reflect in my work.
Right.
It's not going to be as good.
It's cool to see. Personal growth is so personal because for some people, having to hustle and to learn how to not procrastinate and to get more productive is like what they have to do. Right. Like, but for Chani, it was like, I think when I spoke on her podcast, she said she struggled a lot with perfectionism. She's phrased it so cool. She said she's a recovering perfectionist. I love how you said that. And it's just like, you have to learn how to dial it back because hustle is just your nature, and it's not a good nature. But I actually want to talk about what we talked about on the podcast when I came, a little bit about embracing the chaos and being true to who you are and chasing your dreams. I think this is like a really important topic, especially for girls, I guess, like us, or women like us women. Women. Sorry.
Sorry. It's not your fault that you're calling us girls. Okay. It's just a cultural thing.
You don't like when people say girls?
Like, I feel like we're not girls. We are, but we're also women.
Right.
Right?
You're saying like we wouldn't say boys.
No, nothing with boys or girls. Right. Just has to do with like
infantilizing ourselves. Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, you have so much to show for yourself and like a life. Like, why would you're not like a little girl.
Right.
Right?
True. Yeah. I would like to refer to us as women.
Women.
So
that's also part of, yeah.
I guess, this is a big question, so we can break it down. But I wanted to know, because you said you wanted to talk about this topic of chasing your dreams and going after your true self. I wanted to know what that means to you. Like, when you say that, what do you mean in like the broadest of sense? Like, how do you tell that to somebody?
How do you tell someone to chase their dreams?
How do you tell someone to, like, when you tell someone, be true to who you are, what are you telling them to do?
It's such a personal question, right? Because it's so like case by case, as in like, maybe I should speak for myself. Like, I want to be true to who I am. And I would love if you could be true to who you are, but also like, I understand if you're not. And I also can't be the judge of what that is to be true to you. Only you can be that judge.
Although I will say, like, when you meet someone who is true to themselves, you can tell, versus someone who's not. And that
100% could tell, but like, I'm not going to be the one to be the police around.
Of course.
You know what I mean? You're not being true to who you are. I could, and maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm just projecting, like my own insecurities and my like covering up of who I am. Mm-hmm. That could be,
right.
So I don't know. Like, the more like I do this, and the more I like my own personal journey, I guess, is like so connected with podcasting, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Yeah.
Is like less advice, more just asking questions and being curious about like what's going on. Also, like, what's going on in me, what's going on in this conversation. Like, so
more, it sounds almost like you're saying more presence, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, constantly. Yeah. I mean, me and Rivka spoke about that with a lot of people. Yeah. I think it just takes a lot of, because I find it, and I'm sure other people find it as well, hard to figure out what the concept of being true to who you are is.
Yes.
I think it's such a nebulous term. I just don't, I truly can't grasp it. It's like fractured. It's like all over the place. It's hard to define. And I know it's simple for you. It's something that really, I know guides your behavior a lot. Just be who you are.
Right.
But like,
but like, is it my family? Is it my friends? Is it my like work? Is it my this?
Exactly.
None of those things. Like, those
no,
things
100%.
Right. Those things are all part of you. And like, I think, a lot of times people find themselves being different people in all those settings, where I'm a different person when I'm with my family. I'm a different person when I'm with these type of friends. I'm a different person in college or whatever. And like, if you can find a place where you're more or less the same person, I think that's like a good sign of being like who you are.
Yeah.
Because you're not reacting to your environment. Or we all obviously have to react to our environment. We adapt to our environment. But I'm saying you're not changing who you are because of your environment, or bending you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it's also like, you go to a different country and you speak the language. You change who you are. Like, you're just adapting. Mm-hmm. You're just like, like, there's something about being like a chameleon that's good.
Right.
And there's
that's
something
necessary.
About it that's necessary. Like, you know, you behave a certain way when you are around certain company, and that maybe is warranted, or maybe it's not. But it's also something that I can very much judge myself about. Like, oh my gosh, why did I act that way around those people? Like, am I insecure? But maybe I'm not. Like, maybe that's just
you like fitting in, I guess.
Yeah, or just doing like, it was so funny. I was at a friend's house, and I mentioned something about my podcast, and then I said like, you're dare to differentiate, like dare to just like be yourself. And one of the guys there was like, does that mean that like there's never a time oh my gosh, I think I told you.
Yeah.
Like, does that mean there's like never a time that like you shouldn't be yourself? And I'm like, honestly, like that's a decision that you have to make for yourself, and I'm not the one to tell you. And I think what's so nebulous.
He said, what
did he say?
Didn't you tell me he said, isn't there a time to conform or to just like allow or something like that?
Yeah. Isn't there a time to like be conform and just like do what everyone else is and like follow the rules and whatever? And maybe yes. And like that kind of goes back to your question of like chasing your dreams. Maybe there are people who are happy like doing whatever they're doing, and like, and please like don't make up dreams and chase them. Yeah. Like just don't, if you don't have them, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
It's an easier life, let me tell you.
I mean, I also like we have to like kind of break down what chasing dreams means. Kind of like I saw this thing where someone was like, I don't chase dreams, I don't chase. I don't know. It was kind of like pretentious. The way
was it from TikTok?
Yeah, it was on Instagram, and he was like, I don't chase dreams, I don't chase women, I don't chase something.
They chase me.
No.
Oh, okay.
He was like, I just like live I live my dream. I live like. Whatever. The idea is like basically like chasing your dream is like you're like
admitting that you don't have it, maybe?
No. It's I think it's like putting like it's like having this like this like vision in your head, so to speak, of what your life could be but is not. And so you're like, how do I get there? Yeah. But I think it's so unrealistic and not like so I think it's very up in the air, and it's not so like valuable. In my opinion, like I think what's more valuable is like trying to like obviously you want to accomplish things, but like trying to figure out like what success, like how do you define success? Is success like money and fame? Is that because I feel like a lot of people when they think about chasing their dreams, that's what they're thinking about, like money and fame. But if you're just gonna chase money and fame, like once you get there, I hear a lot of people talking about this. I don't have experience with this. I don't know. But like
I feel like I would be happy if I got those things. I'm just saying.
Contrary to popular opinion.
Come back. We'll get the lowdown from you.
Yeah. Hopefully, But a lot of people say this. So like once you get there, it's like, okay, like what now? Like, oh, this is what it is. It's just because it's something that we don't have, so we want to reach it. But I feel like success and dream, like what you should be chasing really is like just doing something that you love and being able to like live with that and make it part of your daily life. So let's say this, if we're able to like, make it something that we can live off of and do nothing, like I would be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you have to like define success in a certain way where it's like more valuable.
Yeah. Well, I think a really important thing when you talk about chasing dreams is, if you want to break it down, to be like, go after what you want. But before you can go after what you want, you have to know what you want. And knowing what you want and being honest with yourself and what you want.
Oh my God.
Right.
Is the most difficult, vulnerable
90% of the journey.
That's the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
That's the entire thing.
That
it's not even chasing. It's like, what do you want?
Right. And
what do you want? It's not that simple.
No, literally,
it's not.
This past Shabbos, we sitting around the table and like, I'm the one person in my family right now who's like kind of in like a limbo of like what I'm doing. Like just got back from Israel. I don't really have a job. I'm like getting my degree, but like after that, everyone's like, okay, I have a podcast, but like everyone's like, that's not real. Like,
not real for you.
Yeah. And so they're like, so what are you doing now? And it became the next 40-minute discussion. What is Rivka doing?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out. But like, that's really stressful trying to figure out what you want to do.
Okay. I'm so glad you brought that up because it is such a good point.
Yeah.
Because that's a message that I actually really, if there's one thing that I want to put out on this podcast, it's that, because I think admitting to yourself that there's something within you that you have to give, you have a passion, you have a talent, and then pursuing that is literally the hardest thing. Because there are so many obstructions, most of all yourself, because of just everything you've ingested from your environment, so maybe from who you are.
Once you know what you want to actually implement it.
I just think even also the journey to uncover it is so hard, especially when you don't have the credence or you don't have the allowance a lot of times around you to do something like that, or you don't have the support, which is very hard because so many people just need that. They need the encouragement. It's very hard to motivate yourself. Not so many people are just unmotivated in general. To find that inner motivation is hard.
Ostracized. Is that the word?
Take the risk to be
like, alone in it, like kind of like,
and you will be
where everyone else is like
100%.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you actually. So do you think that there are tangible obstructions? I want to talk in specifics to our community. Like, do you think that it is harder for someone who's come from like our background to go on that type of journey?
100%. But I also never lived another life, so I don't know.
Right.
Did you grow up in Crown Heights?
Ish. As in, I grew up on Shelfless, but I went to school here since I was 12. So, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Of a
mix of both worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
same. Because
I
really grew up here, but we have a Chavadros in Manhattan, so
right.
Like it's back
same.
Yeah. Right. And that really did that I really did struggle with my identity in that for many years.
In what way?
I had like two different identities. You talk about like people who I lived in two different worlds.
Right.
I guess in between two worlds.
Right.
Like I really did. And they never like
coalesced.
Right.
Never.
Yeah,
like,
I feel
it was just running on like two.
So why was that difficult to deal
with? Because it messed with my identity. Like I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
Right.
So part of your journey was also coalescing these two identities, and then also finding your passion and podcasting. I feel like podcast really pulled these things together for you, which is so interesting and so cool.
Is podcasting now like something that you're like committing to for the rest of your life? And I mean, I don't need to be intense, but like,
are you married to your podcast?
I'm definitely.
No. I mean, like, is that like?
It's definitely long term for me, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And listen, like, we don't know what's next as far as like, be real, right? Like we don't know like what's next.
Platforms like
what platforms are next, but I do feel like I have a strength in that, and I do feel like it's something that I want to do, and it's something that I still want to do.
When you started out, was it difficult to like kind of break through like the community's judgments or stuff like that, like,
or your own?
Were you scared of that?
Yeah, definitely my own. Honestly, community wise, like I've gotten so much support, like
amazing,
so much support. Like I mentioned it to somebody, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, oh, like you have to promote it. Oh, you have to like.
Continue talking.
I like one of the biggest like comments that, again, shout out to everyone who told me this, is like, oh, like you have to promote it, and like where are you promoting it? And, like, how come I don't see it? And first of all, thank you. But I just didn't feel ready. Like I felt like I was still trying to find my voice in it and find like be clearer, like so that when people find it, like they know what's there instead of like being confusing with my message.
Same, I relate to that too. We didn't promote it till, I mean, I guess like a few weeks into doing it. When did we promote it?
We promoted it pretty early.
Yeah, we promoted it. I was just like so excited to promote it. But
yeah,
like,
I was not.
We also like had, like, even now I have a thing where I'd like tell people, I'm like, it's still early. Like we're still figuring it out, which I shouldn't. I don't feel like I should, because like, why
it's almost like apologetic towards our own product.
But yeah, I get that totally.
Yeah.
So you weren't nervous about like the community, like
at that point? No, like. I don't know. I wasn't nervous about the community, mainly because I spent so many years being nervous about it.
You're just like over it. I feel like
just
people
over it. I'm just like over it.
Yeah.
And also realizing like how important this is, like believing in the work more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for sure like a huge value for my parents, like where they moved to Omaha, Nebraska in the 80s, and against every last odd, like they established themselves and they did whatever, like, and year in, year out, like it was always a battle and it was always something that they just had to own. And so I feel like that's something that I really take with me in this, in a different way, because obviously like I'm the same age as they were when they were raising us. And the world is, we live in a different world. Yeah. Like we live in a different world. And so different radical like action needs to be taken within our community, I believe. So that's like my little open a can of worms over here.
Yeah, I'm like,
can we get started?
What do you think? What are your like main things that you think need to be like changed?
Radically changed.
Yeah. Radically changed. Well, I think conversation, number one.
I think anyone who has a podcast agrees with you on that. That conversation is very, very important.
Is the center.
I mean, it's also the center of democracy. Yeah. I mean, it's not, you can't go around it. Conversation is important.
Having like really, as a woman, having a voice is so important.
We could talk about like the whole. This just came up.
And then like as a single woman having a voice,
right.
So like we can go on with those two things for hours, but there's so much more. But
so can you explain a little bit more about the single woman having a voice? Where do you feel like it's lacking?
Where does it exist?
I mean, where is it needed, really? Because
everywhere.
We're just like bouncing each other. Where is it lacking? Where does it exist? Where is it needed?
No, like tell me where it exists.
I mean, I don't know, but I'm saying because I don't relate to that. Where like as a single woman, I feel like I need a voice. So that's
I do.
Where do you feel like it's needed? Is my question.
I think because it's such a common experience, and so I think
to be
a single woman in general, I guess in the world, obviously, but especially in our community, and there are so many things there's so many problems that come with that, personally or extraneously, and so it's a nice thing when you're, I guess, somebody has put something out there that you really relate to, and the experience is what is the word? Validated.
Yeah,
that's what I agree with you with that.
Yeah.
And it's so scary to do something like that because it's super vulnerable, especially if you don't know, if there's never been anything like that out there. And it's like, okay, if I hear somebody talking about how like, I feel as a single woman in the Chabad community sometimes that my singleness is the most prevalent thing about me when it comes to meeting people. Right. It's like, that's the most important thing in their eyes. And it's not the most important thing to me. So I'd rather people looked at me differently. Let's say that's an experience I go through as a single woman in this specific community.
And people don't know that unless you say that.
Exactly. It's like,
how are they supposed to know?
If I want to have that change, I guess I have to be vulnerable enough to say something like that. And whatever comes along with that, whatever judgment comes along with that, I guess I have to endure because I would like to see the change happen. So I guess.
And what I've noticed is that like I can have all the worst case scenarios and this is what I'm going to pay for it. And then I don't.
Right.
Like, and then I just get good feedback and it's like, okay, like, wow. Like I would try so hard and I push myself, to like do something, especially like in my personal, and then like I just get like immediate feedback and it's like, okay, like
it's not, the world did not just like end.
Yeah. Like, okay, like I guess this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
Like this is my mission. Like this is where I belong right here in this moment. And there's value and importance for myself and for the world that I'm here. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. And that's like so important. And I think it's such a universal message that I've personally learned like literally on my flesh. You know what I mean? Like literally through a lot of really difficult experiences and just being like, wait, like you're exactly where you need to be. And like,
that's
what's
a hard
for
one.
you will not pass you by.
That's a really hard one for me.
What's for you?
Well, you talk about your podcast a lot about women.
No.
Okay.
No, not like I talk about whatever. As in, I want to share people's stories. I want to share people's stories who are not, especially when I first started, they're like, oh, you should interview this person. Oh, you should interview that person. That person has a platform. That person has a YouTube channel. Yeah. The person has published 6 books. Like, I would love to at some point, right? But I just want to have conversations with people within our community. I want to be able to just, every time you speak to somebody, you learn something. And everyone has, and so that's the thing about giving a voice. Like I shared a story, I interviewed someone who donated a kidney and so many of her friends didn't even know about it. And wow. I ended up speaking to her about it. She shared and then I was like, oh my gosh, come on. And she came on and it was great. Like it was such a like beautiful, it's interesting because it didn't do as well as some of my other ones, but it was one of my, like, I felt the best.
Right.
One of my, like, that I felt really good about putting that one out.
That often happens, by the way.
Right?
Where, like, the podcast that is the most popular isn't the one that you've garnished the most from, you know?
Yeah. And that's also a really important thing with, like, putting yourself out there. It's like, you're doing it for you also. And this woman, who shared, like, that was a huge thing for her.
Right.
And I think that to me is just like, where
you gave her a voice to, like, share her story.
Yeah. And she's really shy, and she's like, hey. And then I told her, I was like, don't worry, like, we can record it and we don't ever have to publish it. Like, the world never, like, no problem.
Right.
And there's a certain, like, comfort that I try to, like, create.
Yeah.
In that, in the way that I go about the conversation. And that's also super vulnerable.
So,
because I could just rattle off my questions, but then as the conversation goes, like, can we, like, loosen up a little and, like,
connect?
You kind of have to. It has to be.
And that's where you've got to pull yourself out of your shell a little bit, for sure.
Yeah.
And I actually think that kind of relates to, like, a broader question that I have about: do you feel like there's a comfortable environment for people in general to that encourages them to go out and figure out who they are, that individual expression? Do you feel like that is lacking? So then I do too. Yeah. What do you think individuals can do? Like, I know it's in your circumstance, you're, like, actually doing the change and you're actually having that those conversations. But what do you think people could do to actually make that possible for people around them?
Yeah.
Does that question make sense?
I just had an experience today where I just bought myself a piano. I haven't played in, like, more than 10 years, and I want to get back into it. Another, like, way of just, like, I guess, finding my voice and whatever. And I started playing, and then I was like, oh, let me record. And then I was going to post it on Instagram. I was like, nah, let me just leave it. And then I was like, let me just post it. Like, and just, I think telling yourself, like, for me, just allowing myself to post more than less. Right?
Gotcha.
Like, on TikTok also, like, I just have fun with it. And I think that's, like, a big one. Just, like, if you want to talk about TikTok for another minute, with, like, the whole My Boys Choir, like,
oh yeah,
viral, right?
I wanted to bring that up.
I love that that's
so
happening.
Funny, like,
I love that. It made my day.
First of all, it makes me like TikTok more, because I don't use TikTok, but I'm like, it's just so crazy that anything can go viral. Yeah. As long as, like, a bunch of people just, like,
people are so good natured about it too.
Yeah. It's the sweetest thing.
It's the sweetest.
It's like the sweetest.
David walks so Hershey can run. Like, it's so funny.
Yoshi and David and oh my
god, like, wow, he killed it.
Yeah, and you're like, it's so cute. But I actually saw something. This girl was, what she learned from it, and it was literally, like, such a, like, far-bringing thing. I was like, why isn't this Thursday night? Like, she's like, the one thing that we learned about, like, I think she called them, like, the Miami Choir Boys or something. I was like, that's so cute. She's like,
it's like, we grew up with this.
She's like, the one thing that you learn is, like, it's not embarrassing to, like, show that you love what you do and, like, put passion and put your whole heart and soul into, like, expressing what you're doing. And, like, just love it. Like, just, I'll send it to you after. But, like, it was just so sweet. And it's like, yes. And this is another thing that I saw of, like, the reason why things are cringe or, like, embarrassing is, like, so that if I think that you're doing something cringe or embarrassing, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a way that I can control you from not
being successful
or not having fun with it or not
expressing
yourself out there, or not expressing yourself or saying what you really want.
It might be, like, a form of, like, a little bit of jealousy of, like,
control.
There really is that feeling that someone gives you when they say, like,
it's so weird.
Oh yeah, like, Okay,
like
why
that?
are you laughing so hard? That is really the worst. One of the worst feelings. It's like shame blossoming in your chest
for just being for just being you, like for
just enjoying. It really is,
and that really connects.
But I do think,
about.
like in a positive way, I really do think that, and this goes to like Miami Boys Choir thing, like why just Miami, because they were actually just like being themselves. They weren't doing it for anything. So like, yeah, there are people who like do things just for like the attention clout and attention.
And
but I do think that,
even if you watch the choir, like you can actually see which kids.
Are
like doing it for attention. 100% who's doing it for attention, and who's into
I
it.
couldn't tell. They all seemed like
you could tell. You could tell. If you see it, I'm telling you, I'll show you.
I know.
But in general, I do think like everything that's like super popular, like things that just like, and that people are inspired from.
Yeah.
I think those comes from like the authentic people.
100%.
We look at Joe Rogan, huge, biggest podcaster out there.
Right.
He's just like literally just being himself. There's so many other examples. There's like, have you heard of Mr. Beast?
No.
He's like the biggest YouTuber, and he's just like making tons of money, and like he's the biggest thing. And he's literally like, you see him in interviews and stuff, like he's just himself. He's like, I wanted to be the best YouTuber ever. I figured, I cracked down the code how to make like the best, most entertaining thing, and I'm doing it, and I'm not saying I'm the most amazing person, or like he's just like super himself. I think like the things that get the biggest are when you're authentically the most yourself.
Yeah.
So like, as much as like people might like hate on it and stuff like that, it's like if you are,
because they're jealous,
right? Especially if you're,
because they don't give themselves the credence to allow that inner expression, that inner passion, I guess, to show forth.
Or like they see the light and they're just like, yeah, not today. And it's like, how do I shut this down? This, like, I really believe that. And just knowing that that's calling it what it is for myself has been so important. And be like, okay, like if it's cringe, like, yay, like great.
Right.
I literally learned those words from TikTok. That's all those things like this girl was saying. Like, there's a reason for it, and it doesn't have to hold you back. It can, and it does, but also see it for what it is and how it's like literally air.
I was having this whole conversation with my family members before about judgment and how it, I guess, how it's a human experience and how it's something that everybody does, right? If you're a human, you judge.
Right.
And I get so frustrated with it because I think people kind of hide behind that kind of argument of saying, you know, it's, if somebody is going to dress provocatively or if somebody is going to dye their hair pink, then obviously you're going to judge them in a certain way, right? Like, I mean, that's human nature.
Yeah.
But I just think that people hide behind that and allow those very easy, I guess, statements to be like what they're using, what evidence they're using, and then they'll let what's really behind that of judging people and putting them into like categories of less than or other or weird or a rule breaker or cringy, right? Like that's underneath it. Oh, of course I'm judging them.
I think like it really is on you, is on the person being judged to not care.
Yeah, but
because
also
people are just going to judge no matter what, especially if you get more popular. Like that's why I always say, like, if I'm getting hate comments, like I'm thrilled. Like
you made it.
That means like people are watching. You know what I'm saying? Like people like care enough to like write something. You know what I'm saying? Like so, like I just think that it's on you to not care about the judgments, and then people will judge less for that because it doesn't affect you as much.
Agree with you. Yeah.
And like, if you want to look at it from more like an IFS, I know you interviewed an IFS.
Oh yeah.
Hannah.
This idea that like maybe getting curious about the judgment, and a lot of times I judge to keep myself safe, to know where I end and the other person starts, right? So what's the value in that? What's the value in that judgment? And then where am I losing like integrity in judgment?
Yeah.
Right. So judgment for sure has a place. Like it affects everything, and it should.
Yeah.
But to what point?
Yeah. It's more about like what the lines are. But I also,
and everyone's always going to have something to say about what you're doing, especially your family, especially your friends. I'm not sure if we spoke about this, or maybe I spoke about it with someone else, but like, especially the people who care about you the most, because, and I think mostly your family, because they're scared of like seeing you like be in that vulnerable place, because you're part of them. Like you're a representation.
I love
of them.
that. Right.
But like, that doesn't mean
it's almost like they're having to go on this vulnerable journey with you because you're part of that.
Right.
I didn't choose this.
Yeah. You didn't ask my permission.
But also in the line with like IFS, I think what's really cool is that you can come forward with it like from a compassion standpoint.
Yeah.
Being like, okay, I understand that this might be like vulnerable for you also, but like I should be able to choose this, and I don't know, make sure not to speak about it. I don't know, like setting the understanding, but I get it. It's hard.
No. I want to say that obviously I agree with you, and I think that it's on you to care less, and you live a better life by not caring. But I am done giving like a shit about those people and about them hiding behind those things. I think they've got to be called out. Yes. And I think I don't
call them out.
I'm calling out people who use judgment and use it badly. Okay, we all use judgment. We all use judgment. I'm not saying I am not saying I don't. I am, but I will say I am very careful with it. And I this is something that I've worked in myself, and I think everyone should, especially when you come from such a tight knit community, because you're not even aware of how much judgment has seeped into your perception of things. It's something you really have to work to unbuckle. But I really, it bothers me very much now. And I usually don't like to call it out because I don't like to cause conflict, and I like to see things nuanced and try to give an understanding, benefit of the doubt to whoever's giving me over whatever their thing is, especially if they come from an environment where they've ingested these things and it's not maybe consciously coming out. They just like, this is how they see
like,
things.
Wait, what's this? Yeah.
Right? But I'm done giving that credence. And I think that if you see that judgment happening, you can call it out, and you can tell that person, obviously in nice terms, but say, listen, I think you're viewing this wrongly, and I don't think you're allowing this full person to take form because you have a misconception or a judgment on them from a badly motivated idea.
Yeah. Mic drop.
But you can also focus the energy. I kind of disagree, because I feel like you can focus the energy on being like, okay, you can judge, do your thing, but I'm gonna do my thing, and like it doesn't affect you, and the same way these hate things don't affect you, the positive things don't affect you either. Just because you say, oh, you're the best podcaster in the world, that's not gonna get to my head, because the hate and the good doesn't get to my head. Like I feel like you can put more energy into like not caring what people think. And when you make a decision, you know that this is a decision you're going to stick with. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll realize it's not for you, but like you're going to stand by your decision, because it's not going to matter what people think.
Okay.
And then if you're saying no one can judge, then you kind of have to be perfect in not judging.
I don't think that's true.
There's different types of judgment. Like if a lot of people, when they judge, it's like a projection of something like of their insecurities. It's like, oh, you can't do that, and that's a judgment. Like I agree with you. Like, get out of town. And I think we're afraid to set those boundaries. And I think when it comes to it, like this is something that I've learned the past couple of years, because I'm also like, and I've had some experiences where I like told people like that's not cool, and I almost feel like that's what I need to be doing sometimes.
I agree with you. That's why,
like, as in like yes, and I'm extremely agreeable in many situations.
Same.
But there's certain things. It's a klipa that needs to be like called out.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you think you would change someone's mind more if like you're like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'm gonna still do me. Like, don't you think that garners more respect for you?
Depends. Sometimes it has to be called out.
Okay.
Sometimes
I agree. So too. Obviously, if it's disrespectful, it has to be called out, especially if it's in your personal environment, like personal surroundings. Like obviously then
it's really hard, and I think we just hide behind like, oh, like let's just be like understanding.
Exactly.
And, like, no, there is
take it on yourself. Take it on yourself.
Like, oh, like I've had some really terrible experiences where I had to take on like people. I've been hurt, and like I had to carry that.
Right.
And it's like literally absolutely not.
Yes.
Absolutely not. Like this is not me. This is 100% a you problem.
Yeah.
And like you carry it. You clean up the mess.
Yes.
I guess it depends on what
situation. Yeah,
learn how to be less agreeable, because it's important.
It's so
and
important.
I think we're talking about women finding their voices. And I think that's a part of a lot of women having to find their voices and having to speak up and not be afraid to actually articulate things that should be articulated. And I'm not saying it has to be vitriolic and mean and nasty at the Shabbos table when you're just having a nice meal and someone says something judgmental and you're like, you're the worst. And then the table is like obviously just really awkward because of that.
But yeah,
it does.
Or like, or like that.
Like just now I got excited. I was like, are you going to call someone specific out? I'm like, this is about to get crazy.
I'm saying you could do it in a way that's, I guess, skilled.
Yeah.
It's
a skill.
But I guess in my opinion, and it's just how I deal with things, and obviously everyone's different, but like let's say I was at a Shabbos meal where I was discussing the podcast, and like this guy got a little like kind of judgmental on the fact that we do like an hour. He's like, who's listening to an hour? And I was like, oh, I think that's way more enjoyable to like talk for an hour than for 20 minutes. I think you get more out of it.
For sure.
And that was the end of that. Like nothing went anywhere. I could have sat there and been like, why are you judging me? Like, don't, like, we have different, but like, also like, he doesn't get to have my time of day. Like, okay.
100%.
Sure.
Like whatever. Sure.
But that's the boundary you set.
Yes.
And that, like, as in you
point.
did call him out in some way.
I guess in some way by not caring.
But also being like, well, this is how I like it.
Right.
And like, that's maybe how you.
Right. I guess it's different.
Deal with
to deal with it.
You know what I mean? It's just like different ways of just like communicating the same thing.
Yeah.
I think because there's a place for not caring and there's a place for caring deeply as well.
Yeah.
And I care very deeply about judgment and people who are the fallout of people who are being judged. Yes. I care very deeply about that. I think it's not fair. It's not. And I think it's also so avoidable if somebody does the inner work to not be that judgmental person. So that's something I care deeply about, and it's hard for me not to care. And I don't necessarily think I don't want to care. And I know maybe that comes with me getting angry or me being emotional or passionate, like we're talking about, resentful even.
Comes at a cost. But it comes at a cost.
Choice. Yes.
It's a choice you're making.
Yeah. I think that's important. It has to be a choice. If it's not, then it's not. I guess it's a growth I have to go to to get to.
But it's a choice you're making.
Yeah.
And like it's a choice that you're also making.
Right. And also I guess like this might come up really bad, but like I kind of want to just like make my judgments about other people. If I think that like what they're doing is like annoying, I want to be able to talk to you about it. Yeah. And be like, oh, like that was so like weird.
She's so awkward, so weird. Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not obviously not to just like air it out on like this when everyone can hear it, but like then like I want to be able to do that myself. Maybe that's just a selfish thing. So then if somebody does it to me, I'm like, well, I do it to others, so it's fine. Like everyone's gonna always have something to say.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just like I'm gonna have things to say about a coffee shop that I went to, and like the owner was like they did such a bad job there. You know, like why am I judging? Like maybe that he had such a hard time. Maybe like that's the best that he can do in that time.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Like,
but I think what Chai is saying is that when you judgment, like it has really serious ramifications.
Yes.
And like just know that that it's not, when you're judging someone, like know that it could really ruin their life.
Yes.
I know, right.
Like
I not like to be dramatic, think about it in those terms. Yes.
But it could, and you want to be careful, you want to be sensitive. How many times like have I judged myself and had it ruin my experience or ruin my like,
I mean, I also think
we have more compassion and like understanding and put more like goodness into the world? And sometimes putting more goodness into the world is cutting bad out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It just, not all the time, but it has to be on the table. It has to be like in your deck of cards, like 3 out of whatever.
Right. Yeah, and I guess I also think about like maybe like one of the main like problems with this community when it comes to like people trying to like be creative. It's like the judgment part is really makes it really difficult for people to
makes it impossible for many.
For some,
impossible.
But that's why my approach. Maybe that's why my approach is like, I don't care then.
Just tune it out.
Judge me.
Judge me.
Gotcha.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
I'll just do what I want to do.
I'll give you content.
Yeah.
I will give you content.
Like I'll give you something to talk about.
You're welcome.
I'll give you so much controversy.
Guys.
Yeah.
If I become a household name like in Crown Heights, like whatever.
For like all the bad reasons.
Like talk about me.
Enjoy it.
No, I'm joking. Obviously I don't want to, but like
that's the price that you're willing to pay.
And no, but sometimes it does hold me back from doing things. I'm not gonna lie, like I'm not gonna play all this. But I think it did teach me like a little bit of a skill to be like, okay, so then people will judge and you kind of have to just like not care. But I see where it could be really detrimental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had such a hard experience where I was feeling really judged a couple weeks ago. And then there was this TikTok audio of like
TikTok saves the day again.
Saves the day again.
Hi, are you like working for like the Chinese government? Like, what is going on?
We all are. It's too late. It was just like, if you don't like me, that's okay. But watch your mouth. Mm-hmm. And like, I just, that's what I felt. Like I felt so judged and so like constricted by this energy of this person. Trapped. And it was so heavy and it was like entrapping me. And I just like did this thing and I just like, and that was it. And like, I felt so much better. It's like, it's cool. Like, and that's what I needed at that moment of like, if you don't like me, if you don't like what I'm doing, that's okay.
Right.
And like, I had to hear that. And I had to be like, I'm doing the right thing for me now. And I think that's a huge part of my journey also of like, I'm like, this is right for me. You may disagree with that and that's okay.
Right.
And can I own that? And can I like really stand behind that decision?
That's where it becomes difficult to like practically.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of ways you can do it, but and for me, like feedback really helps like confirm that, but it's never the foundation of it.
It can't be the foundation.
It can't be.
Yeah. Because if it's not, the foundation is not within from yourself, then like, let's start the video again, but then it's literally not like, then anything can break you.
Yeah.
You know? So then it's really shaky territory. Like it has to be like, this is a decision I made. Like everyone's going to have a different opinion.
That's cool.
Some maybe I respect more than others, but I'm not going to like, none is going to make it or break it type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about specifically? I don't know, any topic?
I feel like there's a few things that I wanted to like clarify.
Sure.
About being seen in like a close-knit community. I think it's really, really, really difficult for many reasons. And not for the reasons that are like out there. Like not because it's bad for shidduchim. Like I don't think that's the reason. There's this fear of being seen, of being take up space, right. of and I'm speaking for myself. And
I relate to this
that I have like worked through and working through, and it's a constant thing of like, it's so much easier and you're almost like automatically gonna have connections and people if you just keep a low profile and just do whatever. But when you can't, like when that doesn't work and that does not work for you, and it hasn't, and so many of the things that I've done for so many years and, you know, followed just haven't worked. So I need to try something else. And we get pushed to like our limit. It's like, you don't have to find your edge because like it finds you. 100%
the ground is disintegrating as you're standing.
Exactly. Like, and then you have to make choices about where you're going to go from here. And I think that it's really, I guess I want to validate, even for myself, like just validate like how far I've come in this. Mm-hmm. And it's possible. Like it's really, it's possible. And there's so much more support than negative. Mm-hmm. So much more.
Right.
And for me, like opening up my heart to the support, and this is actually something that I experienced this past Rosh Hashanah, of really trying to lean into community. By the way, this year is Shnas Hakel.
Right.
So for me, yes, I'm on my own journey of discovering myself and expressing myself and everything. And I can do it in community. And that was a really hard thing for me to like lean into and find, and still is.
Especially because so much of that personal journey is separating and becoming that individual. Yes. So having to reintegrate it as a whole next level. So I can see why that would be hard.
Yeah. And I think for me, that's my goal for this year, to find that yeah, to really lean on community and include community, and that obviously comes with a lot of like vulnerability, but it's also like vulnerability. The thing about vulnerability is something that you choose. You know what I mean? Like you choose to do it safely, like do unsafe things like safely, whatever. And I think that goes with emotional, like even more than physical. And how can I like get myself like the knee pads and elbow pads and like whatever? Because listen, like I'm going mountain biking, like it's just or hang gliding or whatever. It's happening. It's happening. Like there's no turning back.
Right.
So how can I like find that? Yeah. So I don't know. That was just my little like stream of consciousness.
Love that.
And I think how you always like put in the positive as well. It's not just like, oh, this needs like you're like there is support if you tap into it and find it.
100%.
And also,
it's also like, walking away from the people who are not supportive.
Right.
And that's
not surrounding yourself.
So hard. People who you thought were supportive, people who you thought like understood you and they just don't. Like you can't keep going back for more of that. Right. You and that's a very lonely like
place to be in.
But I also think to not take the risk that you're talking about is like sometimes like you'll feel even more of a regret than taking the risk. So
yeah, we spoke about this. It's not truly living. I actually think in like the actual sense of the word. I think you have to go out of your comfort zone, like Avram Avinu, right? Like talking about the oldest story in the book. You have to go out of your comfort zone and grow. I also think that you also have to, at least for me, you have to let go of the idea of support and validation and people telling you that this is good or we're here. I mean, it's always necessary and important to have that. But I think a lot of personal growth about venturing out and doing what you feel like is true to yourself sometimes is letting go of that feeling that you need people to be bolstering you up. It's finding that true sense of confidence in yourself.
Yes.
So the support is there. Know that it's there because the people who are at that end, they know that judgment doesn't work here. They know that this is the hardest thing to do, and we appreciate people who are going on this journey and taking the initiative on their own.
I mean, it's not the hardest thing to do.
It's no. It might be. It's very, very, it's very difficult. It comes up with a lot of emotions, and you have to deal with it. It's an emotional
thing to do for sure. Yeah.
So I just think that, I think that you have to sometimes let go of that. I need people to validate this journey. Sometimes it's like you're alone, but not.
Yeah. But the validation that comes once, like you, basically like when you can validate yourself and support yourself and know that you're exactly where you need to be, the support and the validation that comes like after that is so valuable.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful and it's so like authentic and wholehearted. And that's what we want, but we're just like holding on. That's why you have to walk away from that other, like the previous support. And sometimes like for my experience, like I was literally like pushed away by people who were not supporting me. And I there was no way, I had to walk away. And it was so difficult.
Right. Wow.
And now I'm like, oh, like you can walk away and there's something better. You don't know what's going to be. You don't know what the better thing is.
Part, yeah.
But like
the chaos.
You know it's here. And this isn't working. So there better be something else that works.
Right.
And there is.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like you have no idea what's going to happen in the next few years. Like in the span of a lifetime, like few years is nothing, but like the amount that can change, you know?
Especially like when you're peeling those layers and you're changing things and you're trying things out, especially like community wise. And I think there's a lot of fear of like what could be because we know what's here and this is comfortable and it's safe, but it's really, and I just back to the community, you know what is, you know what's safe, you know what the rules are, you know, all of that. And you don't know what's on the other side of walking away from that. So it's easier to just judge Be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's doing that. Like, why can't she just like do what everyone else is doing? Because she can't. Literally, the only reason why is because she can't. Like, if she could, she would.
Right.
And I really like what you said about in the beginning of what you were saying about how the problems that most people think are the things that are holding us back are not necessarily the most, I guess, prevalent things. And you brought like a really good example of how if you just stay within the box or don't differentiate yourself, there's a certain amount of like flow that you're not disrupting, like the connections you have, the persona that's not really you.
That's why I think that like when you look
like
at
they're
people
always
who get like so big, they always have such a crazy like life story. Like they were always living in chaos. So like doing one more thing that's like taking a risk, it's like who cares? Like it's nothing.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like
by the way,
I'm never gonna become like so like famous or big because like I just have such a stable like family home and like I have my friends like. There's
don't read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers because that's exactly what he says. He's like all of the outliers in
they're just
human
chaos.
They have like crazy messed up childhoods and backgrounds.
I mean, like literally, like everyone. I mean, I'm sure there are some that are.
Yeah.
Who?
Wait, there's this one comedian who's like, I just had such a normal life, and he like jokes about that because most comedians have crazy lives.
Like, I get along with my parents. I don't know.
But that's literally his joke. Yeah. It's just like, I have a great relationship with my mom and my dad. And everyone's like, why are we finding this funny? Anyways, but yeah.
That's why like a lot of people talk about this also, like Joe Rogan talks about this a lot, like how am I going to get my kids to like do something phenomenal, like they just live such a comfortable life, like what am I going to
throw them in the desert?
But like also like not everyone has to be like famous and big and whatever.
I also don't think that's the case. I think you can actually have a very stable, normal, have a stable life and still get places. I can find a couple people after we can Google.
Okay.
To be our inspiration.
Yeah, it's actually so interesting. Yeah, because so much of like what I wanted to put out, like, you know, artists, like the sad depressed artists, like they make the best art, and I was like, I don't want to be that. Like I want to put content out. I want to put out into the world. I want to show up from a space of like feeling like wholehearted and aligned and happy and content. And where it's like it's just spilling over from my personal life, and then it's just like going into the world. And that's something that I thought about a lot, because there were times where I was in really difficult situations and I wasn't really able to put stuff out, and I wanted to, but then I was like, wait, I don't want to put this out.
Right.
And even my podcast, like it's definitely very much inspired and informed by some really, really, really dark experiences that I've had in like my early 20s, mid 20s. But that's not the story that I want to tell. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something that I want to share at some point, but I don't want to be that girl.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
Like I don't want to be that girl that like her heart was broken, and like, yes, I do want to share that story.
But you don't want to be your whole persona.
Yeah. And some people like, they love that.
Which it doesn't have to, just
and
because you share one story of it.
No, and it's not.
Yeah.
And it's 100% not.
Right.
But that's an intention that I set.
Yeah.
So I feel like you emerge from the chaos and you can't, like, for me, that's kind of how I wanted to be presented. Like, I can be a stand-up comedian. I can say some really dark stuff, but like, I don't want to.
Right.
I will say though,
which I think is like, what's the point of doing something if you don't want to do?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I will say though that I agree with you, and it's almost a little bit more comfortable to present yourself once you've emerged from that chaos and have gleaned the wisdom that you can get from the chaos. There is a special there's a special respect that I have for people who are in it, who are really in it, and still being vulnerable and sharing themselves totally and wholly. Maybe also sharing things that maybe like people will construe as oversharing just because they need that connection, and they're giving themselves wholly, and you know they're in a dark place. And sometimes the greatest of art comes out from those experiences people have, because you relate to that. Maybe you're going through a hard time yourself and you see somebody being so vulnerable, something that you don't even think you could ever do, and somebody's doing it. So I think no matter where you are, like there's you giving yourself, allowing yourself to have that voice is a beautiful thing and important and necessary. And I think it can happen at any stage along wherever you are, maybe pre-chaos, chaos, emerged from chaos.
I'm still very deep in chaos.
Right.
Let's not like make any like,
brash statements about, I'm on top right now. I'm good.
Thank God. Like I'm in so much of a better place, but as you move, there's always more.
Life is not static ever. Ever.
And we love it that way.
That's I mean that also
Do we?
sometimes is a choice. I'm saying like
I'm kidding. Yeah.
Some people choose to just be like static and like kind of.
I don't ever really think you could be. I think you're either regressing or you're progressing.
I mean, I guess in a certain dimension, like, or maybe dimension's not the right word, but in a certain level, like you're progressing. But like I've met people who are just living out life like super just like calm and like not taking any risks and like doing.
Can you bring them on? I'd love to hear.
By the way,
that's why I never come on.
I know.
Like that's the thing.
Right.
It wouldn't be a thing.
They wouldn't come on. Yeah.
I think you should.
Okay. We'll have a orderly.
Yeah. Talk to the board.
What would we talk about?
What are you gonna say to them?
What are they gonna say to us?
What are your dreams that you're not chasing?
But also not everyone needs to like always be like chasing a dream. Some people are okay with just like having, raising a family and like, I mean, not that raising a family is not chaos, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just,
it's literal chaos.
It's literal chaos. But like, I'm saying it's not like some people don't need to like do something on their own and be a creator or like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I just think I feel like most people have something to give.
Yeah.
And I think you have to look inside yourself in order to do that.
Look at other people like, why aren't you creating something? Why aren't you sharing it? Like,
maybe not. Maybe it's not your thing.
Like, yeah.
And I think for many years, like I was that person.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, wait, like you're not though.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I think. I guess we have different opinions. Me and Rivka disagree on basically everything. Yeah. I just think that people have that in their heads, and it's so individualized. Rivka, also know that it's not even creative work. It's not even. I think you're an amazing writer, and you can have stories to share. It's somebody who's really gifted in mathematics. I know specific girls who I think could literally add to the world so much by their gifts, but
you can write peer-reviewed studies, literally, whatever.
But that takes a lot of introspection. It also takes a lot of risk, especially.
But I'm saying some people
we've outlined in this entire conversation.
I have something insanely unique to add to the like. I'm not a genius in any way, right? But I actually really enjoy doing this podcast and like sharing things, I guess, creatively, so to speak. But like some people who are just average, just like me, just want to live like their average life. They don't want to share anything. They just want to live with their family and that's it. Get a job that pays decent.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I always hear, like, people, like, Joe Rogan again, I just, like, listen to his podcast all the time. But, like, he always talks about, like, those people who work a 9 to 5, like, they must be miserable. But, like, I totally disagree. Like, I think some people work 9 to 5 and
it works.
And it just works for them.
100%.
They're happy with it.
To be crazy,
I would
to
be
disagree.
miserable. I was miserable. But, like, so I have to figure out what I'm going to do. But, like, not everyone has to, love everything.
No, I don't want to put that message out that if you're living 9 to 5, a stay-at-home mom, then you're not experiencing the deepest threads of life. I don't think that's true.
But also get curious.
Right. Get curious,
like what's up
about yourself.
Right. Like maybe you're not fully like doing what you want to do.
And I think
maybe you are miserable.
Maybe you are.
No, I think
hello down there.
No, I think what you're saying is just like actually ask yourself. Like don't let it just.
And I can't answer that question for you. I'm trying to answer it for myself, and it's like not impossible, but it's really difficult. It's very confronting.
Mm-hmm. It totally is.
And I think that's another thing. Like ask yourself and know that it's extremely confronting, and you're very brave. It's very daring to go there. Like it's so scary. Much easier to not go there.
So much.
It's going into the depths and allowing of that voice to speak back, and that's the thing about
you don't know what it's going to say.
You don't know what it's going to say, and you also don't know if it's going to speak back. Sometimes the other voices are so much louder that voice has been covered for years, especially if we're talking about.
Do you think that if most people like question that, like brought out that voice, they would be doing something like a little different or like more risk? You think so?
Listen, I had an experience, and this is one of the big reasons why I like really pushed to start a podcast within our community. Was I was working, I taught for like 8 years within like in Crown Heights, and I'm just gonna say it.
Just say it.
Just so I was like, whatever. I wasn't going to go back. But I actually was not offered. They did not offer me to come back.
Mm-hmm. I was teaching
middle school, and they didn't ask me back. And she specifically said that one of the things that like was great when I came in was that I really pushed the girls to like really think critically. And like, I don't care what you answer, but I care that you think and that you form an opinion. Like that's what I was teaching, social studies. And that was my goal. And I think in the beginning, my principal was like, thought it was cute and she was intrigued by it. But then at the end, like she was not about it at all.
Really? How come?
And I think because it was too out there, back to just like pushing limits and like thinking for yourself and like critical thinking, way too out of the box. Like, you know what's going to come next.
What is school for?
Right.
Not to teach you.
So as soon as like, I was like, somebody like me isn't in that school. I cannot go anywhere. She's like, oh, why don't you go to like a Balchuva seminary and like teach there? Because they really want to learn. And I'm like, these girls want to learn? Like, don't limit them. Like, yes, they're like tweens, but like they want to learn.
Right.
They want to think.
They need more coaching.
They need these kinds of like conversations. I'm not going anywhere. And that was really like, that was the point where like I was gonna whatever. That was like the thing that I was just like, this is insane. Like I am not going anywhere. I need to be here. And that calling just got stronger. You know, it's like when you like get rejected from something, it just gives you clarity to like, it just gave me clarity to like who I am, what my mission is, of like, I'm that threatening to the school. Okay, cool.
Right.
Like,
I love that.
Like,
nice.
like you're not getting rid of this. No. So then I was like, that, the next winter, this was in the summer, and then like pretty like couple months later, I started the podcast. It was pretty soon after.
Wow.
And I didn't have a job for a long time, and like almost
Stressful.
2 years. Like, yeah. And it was a really big, and there were a lot of big steps that I took, and I still am. And I'm still like in that like financially chaotic space, but that's part of it, you know?
Yeah.
But when I left, that was like one thing, because I would have decided I was going to leave on my own. But once that happened, like once the door was like slammed in my face, I was just like, I'm going to like do my own thing here. Like, I'll just make a little picnic, like without your like,
right.
You know? So that's
you talking about being pushed,
shocking, yeah.
literally
pushed.
Wow.
Wow.
That's really, that's pretty crazy that like I guess they just like were intrigued in the beginning and they're like, wait, like
this is too much.
Right. They were like, okay, we'll allow this. I mean, it seems a little flirty,
like,
fun, flirtatious. And then like the minute you actually like, it actually started taking effect. They're like, oh, this is pushing the boundaries too much.
Like what exactly were the girls doing that they were so scared about? Like just asking questions?
I guess.
That's crazy to me.
It's very scary.
It is crazy. It is scary and crazy to me. And that's why I was like, I can't go anywhere. Like, right. I need to stay here.
Right.
And I need to have these conversations, and I need to like, I'm just like reminded again. I'm like almost like all fired up, because obviously you forget. Because you're just like doing your thing, and you're having you're interviewing your people, and you're just like in where you are. But
write it down. Post it on your wall. Stick it like mission statement. Yeah. Don't forget.
Like I need to be here. And I feel really called to being here. And like in Crown Heights, and that's another thing where I want to have like, if you're not here, like I don't want to have a Zoom interview. Like if you're here in Crown Heights, then like
you want to specifically like in the community.
Like if you're here.
Yeah. Like
there are so many great people within the Chabad community that I can interview, but like that's not what I want.
Okay.
Really and it's cool. Just like, it's cool that
and it's really cool that you found like your thing, your passion, I guess.
Yeah. And every day, like I'm constantly rediscovering it. Like yes, you'll see like it's so reflected in like how all over the place my like.
You're saying within all the episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it change. Like the beginning was more like class, like teaching. I really love like the interviews. Yeah. The interview style.
Same.
I think you're really good at interviewing and getting like things out of the person.
Thank you.
You're great at creating that comfort space, like you were saying. And one of my original questions I wanted to ask you actually was, what is, I guess, the running theme throughout the interviews, I guess, maybe even your earlier podcasts of Dare to Differentiate? What is the thing that pulls it all together, or is within every episode? Is it that mission that you have?
It's so hard to answer. And like I've been doing this for so long and I guess it's just this idea that nothing's off the table and you have everything you need. Like you have all the resources, the inner resources you need. And it's just a matter of like finding out what that is and getting curious. So, and the fact that like it's there, that it's difficult and it's brave and it's a choice and it's something that you throw yourself into and it's something that you choose and it's something that I want to celebrate and I want to like validate that stepping into who you are is I think what's most important. And for me, like that's the most important thing. But
choice, like
yeah, and but I don't want to say it's the most important for you because
it's individual.
Yeah.
But I agree. And I think that we can celebrate it more. Every person can. I think celebrating yourself, celebrating the people around us who are on that journey, I think
you're killing it.
I totally agree with you.
You're killing it.
All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have any other points we want to say?
No, I think
we're good,
unless
right?
you have anything else you wanted to.
I mean, listen, we can talk all night.
Literally
so much.
This is so great. Thank you so
Sure.
much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
That was
on.
amazing.
That was really chill, and like this is like my dream. Like
Yeah. Listen,
like,
we're living our
just to
dreams.
talk.
We're
Like, literally
living